Welcome back. This is Business Morning. We have been looking at renewable energy, and our guest has been Ebube Ebisike, the creative director at the World Solar Challenge. Is actually leading the Nigerian team to that challenge in Australia next year. Thank you for still being a part of the program. Before we went on break, we were looking at the solar car, and my question now is this car being built in Nigeria or out of the country?
Okay, currently as it is, the car has been designed to a very great extent because we know that most of the solar cars out there are really state-of-the-art. We have taken a lot of time to research and, there's a continuation of the research in place, but at least we could say 75% of the car is done up in terms of the design. We will be building about 35% of the car here. Unfortunately, the issues around the lack of infrastructure has hampered whatever we hope we could achieve with it. But we've been able to make some very good, build some very, very good international relationships with the Delft University, with a few professors around the world, people like Professor Richard Hicks, people like Ambassador Roland Janssen. He's our Director of International Advisory. And we'd also, if you allow me, the billionaire inventor called Bas Lansdorp, who is behind Mars One, which has to do with putting a colony in Africa, a human colony on Mars. Now, these people eventually have allowed us to look at, the prospect of expanding what I would call the entire technology infrastructure in order to be able to achieve this car. We also have been in talks with Wolfram Alpha. It's a new programming language that has knowledge, and essentially we're trying to make the car as intelligent as possible so as to be able to make our drive in that 3,000 kilometer journey a whole lot easier. And then we will obviously set our sights on the possibilities of winning.
Now, you talked about building about 35% of
the
it
car, yes.
Here in Nigeria. So what facilities do you use?
Okay, we have
to do that?
Well, we've looked at the metal likely we're supposed to use to create the entire outer fuselage, or maybe you'll call the chassis. Then we know at the end of the day you probably would use fiber like every other car, for your finish. But the major components, which are more like your batteries and your solar panel positioning and all that, we would have to design outside. We're looking at using a product called Wisec Crystals. It was developed by a French startup, and this obviously has to do with trapping as much sunlight as possible, which we eventually hope that we can use to drive thrust, at the same time storing in the batteries. But you need the car that can overcome normally what is the challenge with most electric and solar cars, which is called range anxiety, the ability to move the car as far as possible on as much energy as the car can trap in terms of sunlight and store within your batteries in order to be able to keep the operations of the car moving.
I was just wondering, how much of the sun do we need to drive a solar car in Nigeria?
Okay, we're looking at having as much as 2,000 solar panels spread across, on what probably you would regard as much as a compact square inch or whatever on the car, on the surface of the car. Now, the other thing is the materials that we're hoping to use eventually are not the kinds that are manufactured here. So that's why we've been talking with a number of international technology partners, like I mentioned, in possibly the Netherlands and also across Europe and America, to look at the very best of the materials. There are materials right now that we have that are competing for space on the car. At the end of the day, we have to make a choice. And we know that in the course of us having to, attract corporate Nigeria like we have been doing and possibly government funding, because the car is expensive to develop, we will be able to meet our deadline.
Okay. For the part of the car that's been built here,
Yes.
What are those behind it?
Well, we have a number of very interesting people who are part of Team Nigeria. There is a Mr. Mba, who is a very, very gifted artisan. One of the things that this project has allowed us to do is to look across the country and look for those with exceptional talent in terms of ability to use whatever local materials are available to create as much advancement, for this particular project that we're chasing. And we have a few engineers, about 3 or 4 of them, who are quite remarkable. And we're sure that, working, with as much synergy with them as the international partners, we will be able to achieve a car that will, set the record straight for Nigeria.
So how economical can the car be? How affordable?
Well, you see, the very first thing is that this is an experimental and developmental project. In the course of the president talking about the NIRP, which is the infrastructure plan that he has and the transformation agenda, you talk about inclusion, which involves actually developing your local scientists and engineers. In terms of affordability, we will get there with the fact that Nigeria is trying to build an industry around the automobile industry. But we're saying that this is the very first step to get Nigeria actually involved. Why don't we make an attempt to build a car which eventually can be put through, that can be put through a test, and we see the possibilities of going commercial in that direction.
Now, I know that there's been the auto policy in Nigeria.
Exactly,
The federal government trying to develop locally manufactured
cars. Yes.
Now, when we look at the fact that we are also trying to also build solar cars, how do you put both together? How beneficial are they to Nigerians?
Whoa, extremely. I will tell you what. On the 12th of June, the American billionaire called Elon Musk gave away virtually all his patents for the car, the Tesla Motors. And he put it out there in the open, saying that virtually any technology in the world could take advantage of that particular car. And what led to that was particularly the fact that climate change is a bigger issue than any other issue you would look at. We have a lot of solar power, so eventually, if we can, at the end of the day, build an infrastructure and create the enabling environment to create cars that are powered by solar energy and electric energy, you would find out that it would virtually seriously impact on the economy, because you would be talking about conserving or protecting the environment from the noxious fumes you have with the regular cars that burn on fossil fuels. You would also be creating new jobs. You would also be empowering new technologies and scientists to acquire that technology. You would be creating a technology transfer for the country, which is of the extreme importance, because that's how every other developed nation like India or China eventually got to where they are.
Now, the federal government has sometime in March said that it's concluded plans to launch a national policy on renewable energy. What should be the content of that policy, and if we must harness the potentials Nigeria has got in this area?
Well, when you talk about policy, there would be a very great need for policies to be driven alongside the fact that you're engaging what you would call your men on the ground. Your men on the ground are, government needs to document how many local technologies are out there, how many scientists are out there, and ask them eventually, we're putting these policies forward, but what do you eventually think about them? There need to be workshops where you create a synergy of understanding of what it takes to take Nigeria from where it is, to the next point, which essentially would involve expanding the economy, empowering, your local workforce. And also, this would also lead to, that activation to ensure that the power sector gets to work, because if that sector gets to work, then it reduces your overall cost in terms of this particular industry. Policies will have to also have to look at the possibilities of research and development. You need to put in a lot of that funding in there, and that is actually what drives any economy at any point in time.
And they talk about human capital development as well, for those who would also run the industry.
Of course. That's why we're making a formal appeal, to government and the private sector to look at, investing extensively in research and development, because no nation has been able to get from where it is to the next point where it is admirable by, the global community without having to invest critically in its workforce, and especially its scientists and engineers.
Okay, we're wrapping up very soon, but I just want you to talk about the plan by Nigeria to also be in the moon, to go to the moon by 2050. I know that the president is also eager. to, you know, setting the ball rolling in terms of ensuring that we also make it to the moon? We've seen some countries in the West have been able to do that.
Well, let me start by saying we were struck by, in the course of the campaign towards 2015, where the president in Enugu made a statement that the PDP is the only party that can take us to the moon and create jobs. We were shocked by that because we never thought, you know, we never saw that coming. Incidentally, we did a letter that says it is possible to put a Nigerian colony on the moon by 2050. We've been able to draw up, you know, a direction for that that would involve the Ministry of Science and Technology and NASTRA to achieve this. But the beauty is Team Nigeria has even been able to do even further more than that. We've been able to create a relationship with the most extraordinary project in the world in the next 8 years, and that project is called the Mars One project. It's been put together by an eccentric Dutch billionaire called Bas Lansdorp, and the idea is to put a colony of 4 astronauts on the moon. So he's actually, we've created a relationship, and we represent him in Nigeria and across Africa. And what he's saying is, get to, you know, the presidency, get to the Nigerian people, get to the African people. We need to be able to expand the resources beyond Earth to other planets, because, I mean, we're an intelligent factor that, if you allow me, that the Lord put here. We've not been able to show that there is any other thing out there. So why not colonize every single space within the solar system? In that line, we believe that Nigeria can make a very useful contribution to mankind by moving to other planets to tap into the resources, you know, that you have all around, and not put so much pressure on the resources on Earth. That's the reason for this move, so that man can evolve to the next level and enjoy, you know, the profitabilities of the solar system.
Does that really excite Nigerians?
I would say
going to the moon?
I would say, you see, the truth is the world has moved on. You don't have a choice but to move on. An example is the media and the president. It was recorded in the media that the president said that by 2025 we should probably be going nuclear in terms of, you know, exploiting nuclear energy to be able to create electricity. The world has moved from virtually, you know, where it is with using hydroelectric and coal and the rest of them. An ability to master nuclear engineering allows for you to be able to power your economy a whole lot better, a whole lot more efficiently. But at the same time, it will call upon you to develop engineers that can manage that system, because it's an intricate system to get to manage.
Now, you talked about some government agencies a while ago, the Ministry of Mines and Steel.
Science and Technology.
Science and Technology.
Yes.
And you also talked about NASRA.
Yes.
Now, how much involvement do these agencies have towards this solar energy project?
Okay.
If you can call it the solar energy project, to drive Nigeria just beyond the solar car.
Of course.
But being able to go further to ensure that the whole country benefit from this development.
Well, unfortunately, in the last it's been possibly over 16 months, we've not had a substantive minister in that industry. The minister, Her Excellency, if you allow me, Omobola Johnson, is the substantive minister for communications technology, and she's midwifing the Ministry of Science and Technology. We have written to them, and they have given a formal acknowledgement of our request, essentially, to be part of this project, to be able to raise the funding, which is about $650,000, to create that awesome machine. We'll hope will, you know, give the world some kind of a scare and say, wow, Nigeria has come to the fore in terms of technological drive. But we essentially need for them to sit with us, and then we can help them chart a plan, a better plan normally to develop our local technologies. They've been abandoned for too long, and that unfortunately is why Nigeria is lagging behind. The other thing is we bring in a lot of foreign expatriates to take positions that more or less, you understand, we could get Nigerians trained to man. And that's the beauty. I mean, if you look at if you'll allow me to digress a bit, if you look at the PIB bill and what has been done in the oil sector, Nigeria has been playing majorly, its indigenous companies are playing majorly in the oil sector, unlike before where you had the international oil companies, driving virtually the entire, petroleum industry. So that's the same thing we want to replicate within the renewable energy sector, and particularly, you understand, our space agency and science and technology. We need to engage more so as to be able to ensure that we can get as much productivity from our people, because we have the potential.
No, just before we wrap up, I want us to look at the World Solar Challenge once again.
Okay.
And I just want to know, what hope do we have in terms of our participation? What is going to be the likely outcome of this challenge?
Well, that, if you'd ask me, on our own end, we're ready for whatever it takes out there. I will be honest to tell you that since Nigeria undertook this prospect to, of the World Solar Challenge, it's been welcomed internationally from, billionaire inventors to entrepreneurs of all kinds. And they're saying they would love to see Nigeria's car. That's the reason why, after building the car, we hope to eventually have what is called the Africa Design Medal and Festival, where the car will be unveiled. And we're hoping eventually to have people like Dr. Stephen Hawkins or Professor Stephen Hawkins there, Dr. Philip Emeagwali, to have a number of very renowned personalities, you understand, there to see what Nigeria has been able to build, and at the same time chart a course for the future of the country.
All right. That's a lot of information for today.
Thank
we
you
do
very
appreciate your time, Ebube
much.
Ebisike. It is the Creative Director, Team Nigeria at the World Solar Challenge coming up in Australia. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And on this note, we wrap up Business Morning. Thank you for watching. We do appreciate your time with us. We hope you join us again, same time tomorrow. I am Bolaji Akinwale. News Track is up next.